Yo, man. So you said something that was really important. You said that you was a crack baby. You said that your mom was on crack and you living with your grandfather, but he's holding it down. Everything is stable. And then like I said earlier, everybody who lives in the hood doesn't necessarily have to conform to all of the extenuating circumstances that's happening in the hood. You feel me? So in other words, you don't necessarily have to become a product of your environment. And yeah, of course, like you said, everything ain't all gravy, it ain't all peaches and cream or what have you. And then you're a kid, and so you disconnected from your mom to some degree. And or you're not disconnected. She's right there in your life, but she's still struggling with this issue. Yo, what up? World, it's your man, Cross, aka Mr. D, and you listen to the Man Up Club presents on Holy Culture Radio. And you know what we do, man. We give a voice to young black males across America. What is the Man Up Club? Man Up Club is a mentor leadership organization for young black males between the ages of 13 and 24. We mentor in 4 different distinct areas, which is life skills, social skills, academic discipline, civic responsibility, with 3 main goals is to get young men to graduate from high school, keep them out of the prison pipeline, get them to go on to college or have a trade after high school. I got a special guest here with me today, man, that I'd love to introduce to you guys. I think it's going to be a great conversation that you're really going to enjoy. I like to bring people who have like a strong testimony, who've actually, been through something in life and has something to offer young people. And my guest for today is Mr. Kendrick Hall. Say what's up to the people, sir.
Yo, what's up, y'all? How y'all doing out there? Mr. Kendrick Hall here, and thank you for having me on the show. I'm grateful to be on the show with you all today, and I look forward to sharing my testimony and how I got to be the man I am today and got to be doing the work that I do today as well.
So tell me a little bit about you, man. Let's start out the gate. Like, tell me how you grew up. Like, what kind of family did you come from, and where did you live, and how was your upbringing?
I was blessed as a kid. So before I was born, my sisters were actually in foster care, and my grandfather had upon his heart, put upon his heart that he had a space, financial security to bring him into the home, and so he went to court for them, and I happened to be born into the process. And so I am an adopted child by my biological grandfather on my mother's side, and just happy to have been born into that life. But grew up in North Minneapolis, and so seeing the drugs, the gangs, the guns, the poverty that existed in the community, which causes a lot of strife and tension between neighbors and black people in that community. Not just black, but issues with sometimes some of the other people that live there that's dealing with it as well. And I would say that I grew up very abundant and grateful for that, but still had to deal with the conditions of growing up in a impoverished black community and be treated as such.
Mm.
And so, when you're encountering like the police, as a kid, they cool with you. But once you start reaching that teenage years, they start to see you as every other black person in that community as a potential criminal, as a potential threat. And I had to face a lot of that growing up. But I was grateful to actually be a good kid, straight A student all the way up through high school, and play football, basketball, ran track, was a part of student council, National Honor Society, and Admission Possible. And when I'm driving down the street during that time and I have my letters jacket on, the cops would treat me accordingly. They actually treated me with more respect because they'd be like, "Oh, you play 3 sports, you're on the honor roll, or you're a good kid. I'm gonna let you go." But let it be the summertime and I'm wearing a regular T-shirt like this, they're holding me longer, they're questioning me longer, and it seemed like they're just harassing you just a little bit longer. It's almost like you got to wear who you are on your sleeve
Mm.
as a black man to be treated with respect in our community. And that happened a variety of different times. Even while I was in college, I remember coming home and just running to the store and seeing some of my friends I grew up with in the community, and I didn't know what they were doing because the police pulled up and they arrested us. And me being a educated brother, I'm like, why are we in handcuffs? We not criminals. We
Yeah.
ain't doing anything wrong. And they were just saying how like well, y'all look pretty strong. Me and my cousin was the only two in handcuffs, and y'all could be a threat to us. And he was like, oh,
Wow.
and I kept saying, hey, I don't think we should be in handcuffs because we didn't do nothing wrong. And I remember the cops saying, oh, tough guy, huh? You want to know what we do with tough guys? And from that moment on, I just gave it to him, let him have that false sense of authority that he had at that time. But it just made me realize that it doesn't matter what you're doing as a black man growing up in North Minneapolis. You're seen you're seen in the likeness of the poor conditions that those our community have to grow up in
Mm-hmm.
and be forced in, and in turn it leads sometimes down a different path of having to do things to survive.
Yeah.
You grow up not having the new clothes. You grow up not having the games. You grow up not having all the new things that you see everyone else have. And then as a kid, you like, I want that too. And so I remember having a lot of friends growing up who turned to a life of drugs, gangs, just to have the money to buy the shoes, just to have the money to eat because they're in a single parent home and their mother or single father is working really hard to give them the life that they didn't have growing up. And so I grew up seeing that around me, and I was blessed with financial security. So I always gave my friends and anyone around me an opportunity to, go to the movie, go to Valley Fair when they didn't have the money to do stuff like that. And so I say I grew up blessed to bless others.
Yeah, that's dope. I mean, you said it quite a bit there, and we can unpack all of that, man. So you growing up in the inner city in the hood, but yet, you kind of well off. You're taken care of, and but you're living in a community where that's not always the case for young kids, and so you're dealing with this, you're dealing with this dynamic. You feel me? And as a kid, you know, you're sharp enough to kind of understand what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So did any of the other kids in the hood, did they like envy you at all?
Yeah, because I didn't move like them. Some of them wanted me to hang out longer and do the things that they were doing, but
Mm-hmm.
I moved differently. I was a really good kid, and if it came to like criminal activity or stealing and doing stuff like that and doing hood things, I was not for it. And so a lot of my friends would be upset with that. And not only that, but when I went to Gustavus Adolphus College in 2009 and I started to grow in my education, I lost friends
Yeah.
because when I came back, I realized when I got to Gustavus, I was talking in a certain slang that it affected the way I was with my education. Like when I'm typing my papers, I'm just naturally talking as if I'm on the street.
Uh huh.
And I was never taught in high school how to actually make sure you use the proper vocabulary, that you use proper transitions, that you actually are making points, that is clear and concise. And I started learning that at Gustavus. And so I started changing the way I talk. And some people like, if you're going to type out every word or talk like a white person, we can't be friends.
That's interesting that you would equate talking proper and using proper English with whiteness. And I've noticed that people kind of do that all the time. And I always push back on that to say that, you can be an educated person of minority descent and speak with proper English and don't have to be sounding white. You feel me?
Exactly.
Because it's kind of like what you said earlier when you talked about, being black, you have to, a lot of times you have to put on the clothes that, kind of demonstrates your character or what have you. I think that that's just, number one, I think that that's crazy, first of
Mhm.
all, but it is a reality for most. But then even what you're talking about right now, where you'd say, well, it's like, okay, because I'm talking educated, now all of a sudden that just equates to whiteness, and that blows me, every time, as if, we can't be black people or people who are minorities or what have you, still be educated, but yet hold on to our own authentic identity. You feel me?
Yeah.
So you in the hood, you got kids and your friends or whatever who can envy you for being in the situation that you're in, but you didn't choose a situation because you're in the hood, but you got parental support, you got somewhat of financial stability, and all those things, and so now you have young people or peers who might get jealous of this, that, and the other. So you're dealing with that dynamic, but at the same time, you're consistently growing up in your environment. But you have proven and you were proving that you don't have to become a product of your environment because that's not what happened to you. Like you didn't conform, to some of the social norms that happens in inner city culture and get caught up in a lot of the craziness. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
so speak to that. Like, how were you able to exist in the hood as a young kid and be in that surrounding, but not necessarily conform to it? Because that's a message that a lot of young people really need to hear. They really need to understand that is that you could be in the hood, you can be in undesirable circumstances, you can be in the ghetto, you can be, all of that, but you don't have to like become a product of that.
Yeah. And I just want to share, like, I'm a crack baby. I'm a claim it. My mom was, you know, doing drugs growing up and still is today. And so I have it firsthand that I could be someone who is addicted to drugs,
Sure.
but I again thank my grandfather for showing me a different life. He was a hard working man. He went to work, had to be at work at 4 a.m. every morning. He's up at 2 a.m. getting ready. He gets off at 3 p.m. and is back home, and he does it consistently every day, and he just showed me a different world, a different life. He loved us unconditionally, and we had everything that we need. So I didn't have to go out into the community and do things to have the new things that my grandfather worked hard to give us. And so it was easy for me to be like, no, I don't want to do that. And I feel like also God had this like innate moral like compass within me. Like I knew that was wrong.
Yeah.
Even as a kid, when my family used to argue or curse or certain things would happen, I'm like, that's bad. Not even knowing what's going on really,
Oh, really?
but just the inner compass of feeling
Mm.
it, I would do that, and even I think that stayed with me as I grew up as a kid, and I always had in my heart that I wish others have been treated and had the life that I had growing up, but typically that's not the circumstances in the inner city communities in which I grew up in, where a lot of other kids don't have that same kind of a blessing. And so it's easier to turn to a life of crime and then join a gang to have protection and then sell drugs because you can't work until you're 16 years old. And so you're out here trying to get money young to get the things that you want to have. And I didn't have to conform to that because I grew up in a blessed environment. Don't get it twisted. It wasn't always fine and dandy. The 2008, 2009 recession hit my grandfather hard
Hmm.
to where he had to take out a second mortgage.
No,
And
that's real, and that's kind of what I want to jump into because obviously life ain't just peaches and cream for you just because you have parental support, in the heart of the inner city. But you mentioned that your mom was on crack and that you a crack baby, and what I want to do is I do want to touch on that and go a little bit deeper with that because that is extremely important, and a lot of people can relate to that, which is having parents who may be strung out on drugs or who may be alcoholics or what have you, even so much to the point where their kids have to be, placed somewhere else, maybe, like with an aunt or an uncle or grandfather. That we do that in black cultures. We got, like they say, it takes a village to raise a child. And when we get back into that, man, I want to tap in and I really want to unpack what life was like for you, knowing that you had a mom on crack, but at the same time you had, a grandfather who had your back, and just kind of how that impacted you and what have you, because you could have chose a different path based on your circumstances. So you're talking about growing up in the house, with your mom, with your
sisters,
aunts,
my
and
cousins.
and your grandfather. But here's the thing, and you talked about the relationship between you and your mom being on crack and this, that, and the other. But you also got an opportunity to see how it's her parents, your
Yeah, it's
grandfather. That's her parents,
that's her dad.
right?
That's her dad.
Yeah, okay, that's her dad, and so
Mhm.
you get a chance to see her dad keep her in the house, living with him as an adult with a kid that he's also now raising as his grandson, and you get to look at how he handles that, even though she's on crack, bro.
Mhm.
Like that's a lot. You feel me? Like, no, that's a
For
lot to
real.
see as a young kid
No, for
because you
real.
got your dynamic with your mom,
Mhm.
and she's unstable and on shaky ground. You feel me? But at the same time, it's like let's, for lack of a better term, you're dealing with the curse of that, or the negativity of that, or the drama of that. But on the flip side, you also getting to see an older man who's your mentor, who's your authoritarian, who's your covering, navigate that relationship with his daughter. And so I'm gonna let you unpack it and talk about it, but I could only imagine there being then, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, but I can only imagine, you're gonna have conflict, you're gonna have struggle. If you on crack, like you gonna rock the boat, you gonna piss people off, you gonna create conflict. And then you get to see the conflict between her and him, but then you also get to see this level of compassion, care, and empathy, and forgiveness and tolerance of how he dealing with her in the midst of all of that.
Yeah.
Talk to me.
Yeah. My grandfather was a very responsible man. Before, he had his children. He had my auntie Cheryl, my uncle Reggie, and my mom. And the reason why my two cousins were staying with me is because my auntie Cheryl, she passed away young due to the aneurysm. And so that's why the cousin sits in the house with me. So my grandfather raised 3 different generations. His kids, both of his daughter's kids. My uncle, he's still alive, did well, was able to raise his children. And it just shows that my grandfather was very responsible, but not only responsible, but unconditionally loving. He opened the door to take care of family no matter what. If you needed him, he was there. If you needed support financially, he gave it to you. If you needed to get picked up at 3 a.m. in the morning and you call him, he's going to be there. He was someone that's going to show up and show out every time, no matter what. That's just the kind of man he was, and the kind of heart that he had. And I'm grateful for that because, that's part of what I want to have instilled in me. I want that unconditional love. It's hard to have that kind of unconditional love in a world where people are selfish, just as my mom was selfish being on the drugs, and people who are greedy and or do negative things to you. My grandfather had so many bad things come his way, but he still forgave. That's another thing, forgiveness, which is part of the tolerance that you shared. And he just did, I felt like, what God would have done. Even though you get on my nerves, I forgive you and I love you unconditionally. And at any time you are ready, you can always come home. And that's what my grandfather did. And I'm grateful to have experienced that because it always led me to be the kind of person and that's why I shared with my friends growing up. I feel like, I got to see him firsthand do it. So when, adopting me and my sisters, we got supported financially from the state. And when we got a certain age, my grandfather would be like, hey, you can manage the funds now. I'm like, okay, say less. Go to the store. And I got to preach on this during Father's Day. And I shared how, like, I never gave my friends money. But if they didn't have nothing to get from the store, go ahead and get your snacks. If they didn't have the money to go to the movies or to Valley Fair or to anything, no, come on, I got you. You know what I'm saying? I guess I instilled, like, I want you to enjoy the kind of experience that I had, and that's the same kind of person my grandfather was. He gave everybody ample opportunity to be great. You know what I'm saying? Even if you couldn't take care of yourself, my grandfather took care of you. You know what I'm saying? And that's the kind of thing that I was doing with my friends, not knowing that I was actually doing that with my friends until now I'm older. I'm like, dang, I was actually living out my grandfather's, you know what I'm saying, footsteps in a way. And so, just him being the example, I also too became that example as well.
Yeah, so you described he became a real model as opposed to a quote role model.
Well,
because he's demonstrating, he's walking it out. You feel me?
Yeah.
I mean that's something to be said. Is your grandfather still alive?
No, he passed away on December 14th, 2023.
Sorry to hear that.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's a big loss for you.
Yeah.
Huge.
Yeah. He wasn't just my grandfather. That was my father.
Yeah. That
was my father.
That's a big loss.
I miss him so much every day. There's many things that I wish I would have learned from him. The automotive, the carpentry, the electricity, the welding. He did it all. And as a man today, believing that I am going to stand on my own 2 feet, those are things that I wish I would have learned from him, because in doing those things today, I could be like, my grandfather did that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But he was a stubborn man. He liked things his way, you know, at the same time. And so he preferred that I came out and learned, but I was a kid. And so as a kid, you give me a choice to go to the park or come learn something, I'm gonna go to the park every time,
Right.
you know? And but I look back and I was like, dang, I wish I would have learned some things. But even besides the point, he's just loved. He's just loved, and that love allowed me to be the man I am today. And I would share with any young man trying to man up, trying to figure it out. Find that love. It may not be in the family member. It may be in a mentor that's in your life. It may be a teacher. It may be a friend. You know what I'm saying? But find that love so that you can become the best version of yourself. That you can rise up and actually do the things that you want to do in life. You know what I'm saying? Life is what you make it. Don't allow life to make you. And that's what I got to understand by being raised by my grandfather. That he said, I would not force you to do anything that you want to do. Me playing football was my choice. Me playing basketball, running track was my choice. Me going to Gustavus was my choice. Me going to Luther Seminary was my choice. And he always told me, if you want to quit anything, I won't stop you. And I love that because he always gave me the ultimate choice. And I think that's what also led to me making good decisions out here as well.
Couple questions for you, as you said, and I have to ask them. The first one is, me and the listeners, we know that you loved him, and it's clear to us how much. But the real question is, did he know how much you loved him and how much you cared about him?
Yes. Yes, he did. I shared it with him before before he transitioned away from us.
Okay.
And I had to share with my grandfather, you've done so much in this world for every person in your life who you love and who you care for. And I'm just grateful to have you as my grandfather. I really am. Like, yeah, I'm grateful to have him as my grandfather because I would not be the kind of man I am today if it wasn't for him standing up and taking responsibility of our lives. And without that, I don't even think I'll be saying that I'm grateful to be 34 years young, present today, doing the work that I'm doing with the youth and living the kind of life that I live. He gave me the skill to work hard and to get the things that I desire. My friends and even my family sometimes call me bougie because it's like my grandfather gave me a bougie life. I still want to live in that bougie life, but it ain't like it's easy. I work hard for it every day. I grind every day. Me and you have had conversations of that grind before.
Absolutely.
But the thing is this, I'm not complaining. I'm making it happen for myself. But if it wasn't for the real model,
That's real.
I wouldn't know how to become a role model.
So
and do it for myself as well.
So the thing is, you said he took responsibility for you all. And so what that equates to is him making enormous sacrifices. Am I correct in that?
Yes,
Because
you are.
we are entitled to have our own lives and build our own lives the way in which we want our lives to go. But then, like they say, life be lifing, things be happening.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Situations, circumstances come your way, and it's like, well, maybe I'm gonna have to pivot because, my daughter's on crack. Maybe I got to pivot because, my son's father feels like it's better for him to live with me as opposed to go with him. Maybe I got to pivot, because of the passing away of, his niece or what have you. So he's taking on a lot of responsibilities, and he's making a lot of sacrifices. And you talked about getting up at 3:00 in the morning and answering that phone and doing what you got to do. A lot of people don't like to make sacrifices today, man.
Not at all. Not at all, because they feel like it's at a detriment of self. But I like to say, you have to make sacrifices and then be disciplined with that sacrifice and then obsessed with your sacrifice and discipline. Because when you are, good things happen for you.
Mm-hmm.
When I spent my pastoral internship in Nigeria and I was growing spiritually and all the things, God was putting on my heart the sacrifices that I would need to make to come back to America and be that growing being that I was able to uh, grow into while out in Nigeria. And I cried.
Mm.
I cried because I realized that I might lose friends. I might lose out on relationships with family because where God is taking me, I can't have naysayers. I can't have people trying to pull me back into a reality that's no longer for me.
That's real. That's real. And I want to talk about that, man. Your transition, into being a pastor. And you a young hip dude, you know what I'm saying? Pastors have changed. The persona or the imagery or the idea of pastors has changed so much in modern day culture. And I really want to take a few moments to unpack that. So you said something that was really important. You said that you was a crack baby. You said that your mom was on crack and you living with your grandfather, but he's holding it down. Everything is stable, and then like I said earlier, everybody who lives in the hood doesn't necessarily have to conform to all of the extenuating circumstances that's happening in the hood. You feel me? So in other words, you don't necessarily have to become a product of your environment. And yeah, of course, like you said, everything ain't all gravy, it ain't all peaches and cream or what have you. And then you're a kid, and so you disconnected from your mom to some degree, and or you're not disconnected. She's right there in your life, but she's still struggling with this issue.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about that, man, and what that does. Because here's the thing: you could use that. You could very easily use that as an excuse to just wild out. You feel me?
Yeah.
Talk about that.
Well, yeah. My mom being on drugs, she never really showed up to the things that I felt important, my graduation in high school, some of my sporting events. But when it came to my health and making sure I was taken care of or making sure I was doing good in school for sure, she was always on top of that.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? She cooked for us. She did her part in to the extent that she could.
Mm-hmm.
But the drug still had a hold on her that it pulled her back out into those streets. And so the time that I would have liked her to be there, like my grandfather showed up to every game of mine, didn't miss one game. Mom came to probably a few, but I know that she didn't make some of the big ones that I wish she would have made, like my high school graduation, and because she rather go do drugs, and that has an impact on you. It brings pain, it brings stress, and if I was to actually um, be how like my mom was, I could have turned to drugs to cope to deal with that. But no, I had something positive and constructive going on in my life. I had the football, I had the basketball, I had the track. I'm getting prepared to go to college, and those things allowed me to not have to turn to those things. Now, if I wasn't gifted athletically, what would my gift would have been? You know what I'm saying? It's no telling. And I'm just grateful that I did have those constructive things in my life to make me make better choices in life. And that's one thing I would like to share. If you don't have something in your life, you got to find those things that are constructive in your life that is going to help you go forward, that's going to help you rise up above all the adversity that we all face, to not have to deal with um, conforming to our society. Now, it ain't always easy. Like the saying is, easier said than done.
Mm-hmm.
However, you got to do it 1 second, 1 minute, 1 hour of every day to kind of build that structure that you desire to have in your life. And it ain't going to happen overnight. You got to continuously have faith in it. You got to continuously make choices that gears you in that direction. And then you also got to, put certain people in your life that is actually going to uplift you and be resourceful and guide you and help you towards the direction you want to go. And I had that. It started with my grandfather, then with the coaches I grew up with,
Mm-hmm.
then with the teachers and everyone. They all looked out for me along my journey, and I
Mm-hmm.
didn't have to like conform to the way of the society because I had that support. The support is there, but it all depends on the kind of choices you're making towards that direction. You can't get upset with an adult who is trying to help you and then you cuss them out or try to fight them because you don't know how to receive their love,
Mm.
and then you think they're still going to be there in return. I remember my coaches used to say to me, uh, when I'm yelling at you, you shouldn't see that as a problem. When I'm done talking, that's when you should see that there's a problem.
Yeah, I've had my coaches say that too.
You know?
And basically, what they're describing is like, as long as I'm on your case, and as long as I'm yelling at you, I feel like there's hope for you to get it, and hope for you to develop, and hope for you to change,
Mm-hmm.
and hope for you to be able to hit the mark or exceed the mark. But it's more of, if I stop talking to you, if I stop paying attention to you, then I've already made up in my mind that you're not even worth my time anymore to even pour into.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's a profound statement.
Well, in scripture it says, love your neighbor as yourself. And if you're not loving yourself, how do you expect to receive love from your neighbor if you don't even know how yet to receive love from yourself?
Mm-hmm.
So it is a both and. Your neighbor is already showing love for you, for being there, for saying something, for standing up for you. But if you keep pushing back on that love will slowly close the door on you.
As if you don't deserve it. Yeah,
And
that's
everybody's
interesting.
deserving.
Yeah,
Everyone's deserving.
So where's your father at? Your dad in all of this?
He consciously made the decision to get away. He was there when I was really young. He left when I was 5 years old. Him and my mom had a toxic relationship because of the drugs and alcohol, and he was an abuser. And
Of alcohol or of your mom?
of my mom,
Oh.
I vividly remember an experience of him abusing my mom
Mm-hmm.
physically. It I didn't cry, I didn't anything, but it's like it's ingrained in my being, and I vowed to never be a kind of person like that. But he explained to me why, the toxic relationship of the drugs and the alcohol consuming them. So he was like, this is not who I am. I had to get away from that. Now I could have went with my dad
Okay.
down to Omaha, Nebraska. I have a very huge family down there. Got 12 uncles and aunties,
Wow.
hundreds of cousins, and I didn't grow up with them or anything like that. But since my grandfather was stable, all three of them, my grandfather, my mom, and my dad, had a conversation saying that I should stay here. My dad still wanted to run the streets, and he knew that, and so he was like, "Yeah, it was a better fit for me to be here." Me and my dad is still pretty close. I love my dad. He's a great man,
Mm.
military veteran and everything, and he just had to grow up through that time of hardship of the life, through the 70s and the 80s and the drug epidemic, and then also the increase of unemployment in the 70s from 30 to 70%. But he was a mechanic, and he always had people. He always had something going for himself. Managers at jobs and everything, and so
Mhm.
my dad did well for himself.
Yeah.
And again, he decided to allow me to stay where life was stable and consistent. I lived in my grandfather's house until the age of 30, until after I graduated from grad school at Luther Seminary to get my master's in divinity.
Wow.
I don't know if I would have been able to do that with my dad, with what he was going through, and then the adversity he had to face and realize, till he grew to his level of maturity today. My dad's sober today, so shout out to him for becoming sober in his life. I'm so happy for him, and I pray for the same thing to happen for my mom.
Yeah. So you believe that um it was a noble act for your father to make the decision, or guide you, or however you want to put it, but to be okay with allowing you to live with your grandfather as opposed to him.
Yes.
So that was a positive.
I believe so, because I don't think I would be standing here as being the kind of man I am today. My grandfather, my dad being from the military, I would have had certain structures in my life. My dad being a very masculine and macho man, I'd have probably learned how to be a very aggressive macho man. I grew up in a household with my grandfather, yeah, but he was at work majority of the time. I had my grandmother in the house, I had my mom in my house, my two cousins who are females, and my two sisters. And so I grew up in a very feminine, chill home.
Okay.
You know what
Got
I'm
it.
saying? And that allowed me to actually tune in to the feminine side of me and navigate life a little differently. I ain't have to go out here and be tough like most people. And so don't get it twisted. I did not like not being tough because I got picked on as a
Mhm.
kid. I got bullied.
Mm.
And until I started defending myself, the bullying was happening. But the moment I started defending myself and fighting back, the bullying stopped. And I didn't like fighting. I didn't grow up in a house of fighting, But if I was living with my dad, that would have been different. And I think that would have led to me probably getting shot and killed at some point because, my dad was a boxer in the military as well. And so if I'd have grew up with my dad, I'd have learned how to use these hands in a more lethal way. And I still knew how to use them. I just didn't like using them, and I think that would have definitely, my mouth would have been more aggressive, you know what I'm saying? And in a community like North Minneapolis, depending on who you're dealing with,
yeah,
that could be the difference of whether you're going to make it home at night or not, And I've seen many kids get shot over the most stupid things. You stepped on my shoe. You're sitting in my seat. You know what I'm saying? I remember even being at a party, and I think I was in 7th grade. Some dude got up from a seat, and I went to go sit there, and he came back. He was like, "Yo, this is my seat." I'm like, "What are you talking about? Anybody can sit here, right?" And he made a little gesture with his bag, like as if he had a gun in it. And I just got up like, "Yo, you got it, bro. Like it ain't even that big of a deal."
Yeah.
Because I know I want to make it home at night.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Now, if I grew up with my dad, I'm like, "Who you talking to? Who you think you trying to punk?" You know what I'm saying? And that situation would have been different. But I'm alive to now share that story because how I handled it then. I remember even growing up, dudes wanted to fight me because I was popular. The girls liking me. I'm a star football player, basketball player, track runner, and I'm getting straight A's. I'm blessed with finances and stuff. So I look like a star. And I had dudes wanting to fight me because of jealousy, right? But I used to tell guys like, man, I ain't got no problem with you. As long as you don't step in my bubble, we ain't gonna have no problems. And I've gotten out so many fights or complications that I didn't have even any quarrels with anybody. It ain't like I did something to them for them to have, aggression towards me. It was just, me being able to grow up with a blessed life that, some people do envy and have jealousy of.
Yeah, that's a lot of wisdom that you're sharing from the standpoint of just being able to articulate, what the differences would have been had you grown up with your father versus you growing up, with your grandfather. And a lot of young people can't really decipher the difference in that regard or be able to just kind of pinpoint what those fundamental differences are that would make a major difference in their life and the trajectory of their life. It's interesting that you able to break that down. So what it also tells me is that your grandfather has a lot of wisdom that he shared with you as you were growing up. Tell me about this transition for you, man. You done grew up, having your tough circumstances and, living with your grandfather and him being a very instrumental in your life and like just being that rock for you. But you're a man of faith. Number one, how did you come into your faith? And then what made you want to take it so far as to become a pastor? And then as a pastor, what's your mission as a pastor? I mean, I understand overall pastors' missions in general from a theological perspective. Yeah. Which is to fulfill the Great Commission, to go into all the world and preach the gospel. Got it? But there's so many ways in which that can be done. Like for me, mine is through hip hop music. You feel me?
Well,
through films and all of that kind of stuff, through media, and I don't consider myself to be a pastor, but I understand that everybody should have a ministry. But you went on to become a pastor. I just kind of want to know what
how did I get to that point?
How you get to that point, man, and then what's your delivery method?
Yeah. So growing up, I went to church a few times with my family, I remember, but then we stopped for a minute, and then I remember this church, Straight Gate Baptist Church in South Minneapolis off of Park and Franklin. They were doing some activities in North Common Park, and that's where I played football at the time. But, it's a nice summer day, and I'm just at the park having fun with my friends. And we see that. We're like, hey, let's see what they're doing over there. We go over there, and, they were doing a little activity, juggling and all of that. And after that, they were like, hey, do you want to go to church? I immediately said yes. Because I think in my heart, I really wanted to have a relationship with God.
How old were you at this time?
I want to say 9 years old.
Okay.
9 years old. And that led to me going to church at Straight Gate every Sunday. And, And the best part was that they picked you up in the blue buses around the entire community, around the
Nice.
entire cities. They
Nice.
had buses go to different routes to different areas to pick kids up. And so, they'll pick you up and take you to school. You have Sunday school, and then you have for an hour, then you have a service for an hour, and then they're taking you back home and everything. And I had great mentors, rest his soul, Reverend um Roger. I can't remember his last name right now, but Magnuson, and great guy, lawyer and a pastor,
Nice.
and did great work throughout his time, and just such a loving person, and had even a great Sunday school teacher, rest his soul, Mr. Delaney. And so I think my faith started in just wanted to have a relationship with God, and grow up in the community. You get confused, you get lost in understanding, like, okay, if God is all powerful, all knowing, and all seeing, why is life like this?
Man, so many people
What
got
is
that
going
question,
on
bro.
in this world that makes life like
So
this?
many people got that question.
And so, I found myself while in college distancing myself from the church, because I didn't feel like the church was truly living out the faith in which how Jesus Christ lived.
Mm,
You know what I'm saying? And even Jesus had issues with the church of his time,
that's real.
you know? And so when you start to see that, and you be like, okay, dang, that's kind of crazy. But I still had strong faith. I still believe in Christ. I just didn't believe in the institution, which were acting as if they believed in Christ, but
Mhm.
not living in the likeness and image
Got it.
of Christ, not embodying it.
Got it.
And so I went for some years without being in church until I had a mentor. And actually, he became my pastoral intern, Pastor Lewis Tillman, who believed in the people in the community, invested in us in a way that allowed us to get back into the church, and helping us understand that us warriors are needed in the church, us
Mhm.
us us faithful people who believe but are feel like not being groomed in the right direction need to be there. And so I ended up working with him, and then Jamar Clark ended up getting shot and killed in
Yep.
2015
Right.
in that November.
That's
And
that was tough.
15 of the 18 days, several of us was always going out there to support. And I remember sitting around and hearing how the cousin of Jamar Clark was saying, "Where is the clergy and the pastors when nothing is going on?
Wow.
Where is the clergy and pastors when there's no marches, when there's no cameras, when there's no rallies? Where are y'all then?" And where's the people of the church? And I felt like he was pointing at me because I'm in the church. I'm working for the church,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And that was like, okay, what is going on here? And even in that time, people in the church got to see my faith for the first time, and how I was with the people, prayerful in conversation and all of that. And I had the church coming to me. I'm with the Evangelical Lutheran Church of America, and I had the church coming to me, people in the church and the Senate and all of that, like, "Hey, you have a pastoral spirit. Have you ever thought about becoming a pastor?" No, no. But thanks to Brother Lewis Tillman, Pastor Lewis Tillman, for giving me opportunity to travel with the church. I think what changed my perspective, because I was in seminary at this time, in 2016. As we get into 2016, I went to Alex Haley Farm for their Proctor Institute. It's a space where, if you believe in social ministry, they bring pastors of all denominations and people of all walks of life who want to get revitalized, who want to get refueled for the social ministry. You go there. And when I went there and I saw pastors who looked like me actually doing the work, actually in the trenches, actually advocating and activating, I was like, that could be me in my community.
Nice.
And even when I went to my first year of seminary, I actually did not go to get my master's in divinity. I went to get my master's in art because I still was questioning whether the pastor role was for me. But when I went to Proctor Institute and got to see them, I was like, yes, okay,
Locked you
God,
in.
thank you for letting me know this is you're activating the pastoral call.
Wow.
Because I wanted to be what Jamar Clark cousin needed, that pastor who shows up even when things are not going on.
Got it.
And so I was like, okay, yeah, pastoral it is. And so 4 years of seminary, graduated 2020, have my master's in divinity. And, I would say my message is that to embody the likeness and image of God in such a way that justice actually reigns. that righteousness actually reigns, that prosperity and peace and joy for all actually reigns. And until that comes, the work is not done. The work is not done. Even thinking about what the ancestors of slavery and Jim Crow and all of that went through, I just feel like there's just a passing of a torch
Mm.
that I finally have uh, put in my hands and saying I'm willing to carry that because freedom has yet to come to us. Peace and prosperity and justice has yet to come to us, and it's our duty, it's our moral obligation to do something about it. And if we don't do anything about it, we'll be continuously getting treated exactly the way we're getting treated. You will still know poverty. You will still know lack of resources, and knowing that God created those resources for you to benefit from.
Right.
And so if you don't have them, then something has happened in your world that man is telling you that you can't have access to the resources that was created for you. No, it's time to change circumstances and institutions out here to make sure that the people are really getting respected, to have the resources that they need so that they don't have to live a life of crime, so that they don't have to worry about if they're going to have a roof over their head, food in their house, can their children have clothes on their back, get to school, or even be safe in the world and all of that. It's about justice. It's about peace. It's about love really reigning, and it ain't happening in its entirety.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we get nice glimpses of it, but justice is time. It's time for justice. It's time for prosperity for all, and not just for those who are chosen, because everyone is chosen.
I like that, man. I like the way you put it. I like the way you explained it and articulated it. And now we all understand very clearly, what your mission is. And I think it's a great mission. I think you capped it when you said you wanted to be that person, that was out there, when the situation happened to Jamar Clark, and that you wanted to be the person that was out, the pastor that was out there on the scene, in the thick of it, right there, readily available, to be able to serve the people. And really, that's what it's about. It's about the ability to be able to serve the people. I find it amazing how there are so many people who claim to be Christians, but they don't see, Jesus as a God of justice. It's almost like a lot of times they try to leave that part out because, and I would venture to say and submit that is because they don't want to deal with conflict, the true conflict that comes with being a Jesus follower and being a true Christian. We try to omit some of this stuff, where the hard conversations need to be had. And then even a lot of times where, as Christians, we're really missing the mark in regards to serving humanity.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
feel
I
me?
would want to share and add. I was speaking with my brother over here, and I was sharing how we have two different kinds of Christians that exist.
Go ahead.
And the two different kinds is the wilderness and the imperial Christian, the one who went with the empire, the one who went into the wilderness. Now, when the 400 years of prosecution was going on, they were still growing in numbers, right? And Constantine sitting back and looking like, how is these people still growing in numbers in the face of prosecution? Maybe I can utilize this towards my political benefit, because in one of my studies, I actually have in my notebook that Constantine put Christianity on display to control the imagination of the entire populace.
Mm.
Whereas Jesus was trying to free our imaginations from the entire populace,
Right.
or empire. So the true followers, when Constantine went to those early Christians, um, the wilderness Christians was like, no, I'm good. I don't need your protection. I don't need your clothes. I don't need your housing. I don't need anything that you're trying to give me. I'd rather go out here and practice in the way that I was taught, that I actually saw Jesus live, or actually have the stories being passed down so that I can continue in that way, right? And then the ones who were tired of being killed, not having all the resources, not having a warm bed or something like that, because you now have to create the life for yourself, or gave in. And so now that the wilderness is much smaller and the empire is much bigger, we have been indoctrinated into this imperialized way of looking at Christ and embodying Christ. And so we have not truly been embodying Christ in the way that we are supposed to. And that's the conversation as Christians that we must have. We must dig deep into the history and that understanding, because that has taken us away from actually doing what we are supposed to do to make sure that life is abundant for all.
Yeah, man, I just appreciate your perspective as a pastor and your perspective as a Christian because, that's where the real transformation happens and the real work gets done, and where God can shine the most, man, because, there's a lot of things that are going on and it's like, you know, there's a scripture that says you don't want to be so heavenly minded that you're no earthly good. And that's what's kind of resonating with me when I hear you talk. You feel me? In regards to the approach to the gospel, the approach of the Christian heart, and the mission. You feel me? Is that, yeah, we can talk about some of these high minded theological things, but at the end of the day, can you meet people in a practical place where the rubber meets the road, and can you really tend to a person's need, like Jesus said? You know, his perspective is you got to feed a man before you give him the gospel. If he's hungry, how you gonna hear what hear what he need?
Come on.
So I appreciate the
Yeah.
chopping with you, man. It's been great. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? I love what you're doing in the community. I want to promote you and pray that you continue to do it and that God just take you to the next level
Yes.
in everything that you're doing, man. And we're gonna continue to run together and impact these Twin Cities and around the country, man. It's your man, Mr. Dean. You know what it is. It's the Man Up Club presents on Holy Culture Radio. Tap in with us. If you want to make a donation to our organization, go to our website, which is themanupclub.org, or check us out on IG, you know what I'm saying, at The Man Up Club. So tap in with us. Holla at your boy.